Welcome, everyone. I'm Tanya Stevenson, the CEO of the Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation, and I welcome you today, July 1st, 2022, for the Meet the Drug Developer session with Avidity Biosciences. A little bit about MDF. We envision a world with treatments and a cure for myotonic dystrophy. Our mission is community, care, and a cure. We support and connect the myotonic dystrophy community. We provide resources and advocate for care, and we accelerate research towards treatments and a cure. A reminder of some of the really critical, important resources that are available on the MDF website. We have toolkits and publications, including clinical care guidelines, myotonic.org/toolkits-publications. We have many different types of support programs, including support groups throughout the US and Canada, and many virtual options for people to participate from anywhere in the world. myotonic.org/find-support. You can check out our calendar of events for all of our upcoming activities and events at myotonic.org/calendar/month. And please check out our digital academy, where we host all of the videos from our programs, including our conference sessions. And today's program will be posted sometime next week on our digital academy at myotonic.org/digital-academy. Today we are here. It's the first Friday of the month, 12 o'clock Pacific, for Meet the Drug Developers series with Avidity Biosciences. Today, we have a bonus later this month, which is not the first Friday of the month, but we will be hearing from Avidity Biosciences on July 22nd. So if you have not registered for that, we welcome you to register on our website. August 5th, we will be hearing from PepGen. And of course, if you have not yet registered for the MDF annual conference, please do so. Registration is open, and there are both in-person and virtual options. For more information and to submit questions for any future sessions for Meet the Drug Developers, please visit myotonic.org/meet-dm-drug-developers. Similarly, on the third Friday of each month at 12 o'clock Pacific, we have experts coming to you to talk about different areas and focus on myotonic dystrophy. On July 15th, which is just a couple weeks away, we will be hearing from an expert on palliative care. And on August 19th, we will be hearing about disability rights, future planning, and special needs. You can submit questions about these issues to the experts at myotonic.org/ask-expert-series. Okay, we are here to meet this fantastic team. We have 6 members of the Avidity team here to talk to you today. We are really fortunate that they are all here with us. You are going to hear from Ms. Alissa Peters. Alissa joined Avidity in June of 2020 and serves as the Senior Director of Patient Advocacy and Corporate Affairs. Alissa has focused her career on supporting the development and commercialization of RNA-targeted therapeutics for rare diseases with high unmet needs, including neuromuscular diseases. At Avidity, Alissa actively partners with patient and advocacy communities to ensure that perspectives are central across all initiatives at the organization. Joining her is Dr. Lee Tai. Lee joined Avidity in September of 2020 as Executive Director in Clinical Development. As a board-certified adult endocrinologist, Lee has focused on basic and clinical research in cardiometabolic diseases and diabetes before moving into rare neuromuscular disease therapeutic area by supporting the development and approval of treatment for transthyretin polyneuropathy. Also with us today is Dr. Husam Younis. Husam joined Avidity in December of 2020 to lead non-clinical development, bioanalytical, pharmacokinetic, and biomarker sciences functions. He has more than 20 years of experience leading research and development teams to advance drugs across multiple therapeutic areas, including neurodegeneration disease. Husam completed his graduate training in pharmacology, toxicology, and in pharmacy practice at the University of Arizona. Another team member today is Ben Knisely. Ben joined Avidity in September of 2020 as the first clinical operations team member and is director of clinical operations. He has over 12 years of experience in biotech drug development. Much of his experience has been working in rare neuromuscular diseases, including trial management for the development and approval of treatment for transthyretin polyneuropathy. Ben says he finds great purpose and fulfillment working with clinicians to pioneer new potential therapeutics with the goal to improve the lives of patients and their families. Also part of the team today, we have Joe Johnston. Joe joined Avidity in January of 2021 as Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Quality. He has over 30 years of pharmaceutical industry experience, including extensive experience in developing novel oligonucleotide and small molecule therapies for neuromuscular, rare, and pediatric diseases. In his regulatory affairs role, he has supported and advanced multiple programs, including pivotal programs for spinal muscular atrophy and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And the sixth member of the team today is Ms. Carolyn Ball. Carolyn joined Avidity in December of 2020 and is currently the Vice President of Technical Operations. Carolyn has spent 30 years in biopharmaceutical industry in manufacturing and supply chain roles and has worked on numerous rare disease drug launches. She views herself as the caretaker of the hard work done by the early phase research team as Avidity prepares for larger clinical trials and eventual commercial launch, which we are all looking forward to. We always welcome you to support the MDF mission in many different ways. And if today's program speaks to you, please consider showing your appreciation with a donation to MDF. Together, we will change the future of myotonic dystrophy. And you can reach that at myotonic.org/donate. Okay, you are here to talk with these 6 fantastic people. So I'd like to now welcome the Avidity Biosciences team. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Tanya. My name is Alissa Peters, and as Tanya shared, I'm the Senior Director of Patient Advocacy here at Avidity. I want to thank MDF for inviting our team to share about Avidity and our programs in developing potential treatments for the myotonic dystrophy community. We view this as an important opportunity to continue our dialogue with you, and thank you to so many of you for submitting such thoughtful questions ahead of our presentation today. We look forward to answering those questions throughout our talk as well as during the Q&A session. There is a lot of excitement and questions about the MARINA trial, and while we look forward to sharing updates and results with you once those are available, there are some questions that we won't be able to address today as MARINA is an ongoing blinded clinical trial. This slide is just to say that we will be making forward-looking statements during today's presentation. Avidity is a biotechnology company based in La Jolla, California. At Avidity, patients are at the heart of everything we do. Our mission is to improve the lives of people impacted by diseases with limited therapeutic options, including myotonic dystrophy, by advancing a new class of drugs. Our team's extensive experience in drug development, combined with our commitment to involving patients every step of the way, is the foundation of our company and is what truly drives us in advancing new treatments. Here you can see our research and development pipeline. We are applying our technology to develop a pipeline of potential treatments for people impacted by rare muscle diseases, starting with our first program for myotonic dystrophy type 1, AOC 1001, which we'll focus on for our talk today. Our innovative drug technology unlocks a new way to deliver drugs directly to affected cells like muscle and heart cells, and allows us to develop new treatments for diseases with limited therapeutic options. We are applying our technology to develop AOC 1001 for the DM1 community, which has the potential to treat the root cause of the disease. We strive to partner with the community to incorporate the patient voice into everything we do. And we're very happy to share that the MARINA study, a phase 1/2 clinical trial in adults with DM1, is currently ongoing in the US and expected to complete next year. As the title of this series, Meet the Drug Developers, suggests, we hope to use this opportunity today to introduce you to several more members of our team who each have different but important roles here at Avidity and all share the same overarching goal: to advance a new treatment for the myotonic dystrophy community. We hope to share helpful information about the drug development process as you consider your role or the community's role in clinical research and as you stay up to date with advances in care. To start, I will share about our approach to patient-centric drug development. Lee will then share an overview of AOC 1001 and the current status of the MARINA study. And then we'll invite our teammates Husam, Joe, Ben, and Carolyn to share about their role in the drug development process and how they are working with their teams to advance AOC 1001. I'll start by sharing about our approach to patient-centric drug development. At Avidity, I serve in a strategic patient advocacy role, and I've had the pleasure of partnering closely with MDF and many of you in the community as we advance our DM1 program. Avidity's patient advocacy goals are to serve as the bridge to communicate, educate, and collaborate with the patient community. We prioritize partnering with individuals and families living with DM to elevate your voices, experiences, and needs. In fact, it was really exciting for our team to participate alongside so many of you last year in raising awareness for the first ever International Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day, and we look forward to recognizing this important day this year in September as well. I'm also happy to share that we've developed meaningful partnerships with advocacy organizations like MDF so that we can all work together to amplify our efforts to advance care for the DM community. Here at Avidity, we seek input and partnership with multiple key stakeholders in the development of new treatments. It is only through these active and ongoing partnerships across stakeholders, including organizations like MDF, the community of families they support, healthcare providers, health authorities like the FDA, and coverage insurance providers, that true patient-centric drug development is achieved. These collaborations can help ensure that patients and their families are put first in decisions in our shared effort of advancing new and meaningful treatment options. You'll hear more about the importance of these partnerships from my teammates shortly. We are continuously seeking input from the DM community throughout each stage of the drug development process to best address your needs. Collaborating early and often will always be a key component of our process, and we're doing this through listening, partnering, and connecting with families in the community. Your perspectives inform our approach to drug development and inspire us as we stay committed to our mission to improve the lives of people impacted by diseases like DM1. We design our clinical trials in partnership with patients and their families to ensure we are best meeting your needs and expectations. And finally, we want you to feel heard and supported and know that you always have an open line of communication to our team. One of the questions that you submitted for our team today is, how can I become more involved in Avidity's effort for DM1? There are several different ways to contribute to our effort, as well as the overall effort to advance research for the community. These can include continuing to raise disease awareness by sharing about your personal journey with this condition. You can also consider enrolling in natural history studies like the NDM1 study and signing up for DM registries. These are both very important tools for researchers and clinicians as we work to develop new treatments. You can also collaborate with researchers and patient advocacy organizations by sharing your time and your perspectives through surveys, focus groups, and more. And finally, you can talk with your healthcare provider about clinical trial opportunities. And I know that many of you on today's call are already involved in one or more of these activities. And so we just want to thank you for your help in advancing care and treatment options for the entire myotonic dystrophy community. This is truly a partnership, and we couldn't do it without you. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Lee.
Thank you so much, Alissa. My name is Lee Tai, and I'm an Executive Director of Clinical Development and the Program Lead for the AOC 1001 DM1 program at Avidity Biosciences. It is my honor today to be here to talk about how we are applying our AOC technology to addressing DM1, as well as to share about our ongoing clinical study, the MARINA trial. In my role in clinical development, in the next slide, I lead multi-phase development plan with the goal of bringing a drug to market as efficiently as possible for patients. We share the sense of urgency with the DM1 community and the desire to bring new therapies to patients as quickly as possible. At the same time, we take our responsibility to the community very seriously. We need to ensure that the new therapies are both safe and effective for patients. To accomplish this, we designed clinical trial details, including duration, size of the trial, and population characteristics in the trial to best gather both safety and efficacy data. Clinical development works with multiple other functional experts, some of them you will meet today, to collect and analyze results generated from clinical trials, and then report the results to the patient and research community. Today, I'm very excited to share with you about the progress we have made with the MARINA study. Next slide, please. However, first, I'd like to review with you how AOC 1001 works. To do that, I need to first go over the cause of DM1. As you know, DM1 is caused by a mutation in the gene called DMPK. The mutation contains many CTG nucleotide repeats, sometimes up to hundreds or thousands of nucleotides at the end of the DMPK gene. When the mutant DMPK gene is transcribed to RNA, the RNA also contains these mutant repeats. And these repeats are toxic to the cell and impair normal cellular function in many different organ systems, as shown in the next slide. For today's talk, we'd like to focus the signs and symptoms of DM1 disease mainly on the muscular system. So if we can go to the next slide. As you know, a substantial amount of these disease signs and symptoms are in the muscle tissue, including skeletal, smooth, and hard cell. As I know you are very aware, there are many signs and symptoms, but I want to focus on some of the symptoms listed on this slide. And these include myotonia, muscle weakness, pain, GI issues, abnormal heart rhythm or function, and breathing problems. These results in significant decline in quality of life, and is something we're hoping we can do. We can help with the AOC 1001. I want to point out these symptoms because this drug that we're developing for DM1 is specifically designed to go to muscle and heart tissue to reduce the amount of toxic DMPK RNA made in the cell. And we hope by reducing the toxic DMPK RNA level in muscles and heart, there will be a decrease in some of these signs and symptoms. So on this slide, I'd like to go a little bit more in detail on what is AOC 1001. AOC stands for antibody oligonucleotide conjugate. AOC is a type of drug class that we're developing, and it can be designed to target muscle cells. So our goal is to first develop AOCs to treat genetic neuromuscular disease, including DM1. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The AOC platform combines the proven technology of existing drug types that are well understood for each of their specific properties in drug development. On the top, you see a picture of an antibody. An antibody is a naturally occurring protein made by our bodies to help fight infection. Antibodies are commonly used as therapies for disease because they can be made to target almost any protein, including those that are different between one cell type to another. Antibodies are the foundation of over 100 approved drugs, many of which are for chronic conditions. So at Avidity, we're using the antibody as a vehicle to deliver our drugs specifically to muscle and heart cells. The second part of the AOC 1001 is an oligonucleotide, as shown on the bottom left. An oligo is a short strand of DNA or RNA. Oligo can be powerful drugs because they can change gene expression or how the body makes a protein by targeting RNA. There are currently multiple approved oligo drugs, many of which are disease-modifying therapies. At Avidity, we are using oligo in our AOCs that are tailored to target the root cause of disease, in this case, DMPK. In the next slide, I want to tell you a little bit more about the oligonucleotide we're using. This type of oligo is called small interfering RNA, or siRNA. It works by harnessing a natural biological process in the cell called RNA interference. RNA interference is a mechanism used by our bodies to fight off things such as RNA-containing viruses. We can borrow this natural process by delivering an siRNA that targets specifically the RNA of interest, in this case DMPK RNA, and leads to its degradation or chewed up by a protein complex, which is shown here as a Pac-Man. If I can go to the next slide, please. So this slide puts both components of the drug together and show you how it works. So the antibody we're using sticks to a certain receptor on the surface of the cell. And this receptor is called transferrin receptor. When the antibody finds and binds to the transferrin receptor, the receptor pulls the antibody into the cell, which means that the oligo comes in with it, and they both go into the cell at the same time. Once inside the cell, the oligo is freed, and it can then do its job, which is to find the Pac-Man protein complex and bind to the DMPK RNA. And this action leads to the disappearance of the toxic DMPK RNA. Let's go to the next slide. So I'd like to show you two slides of data from experiments we have done in the monkey studies. And these are the studies so far that we have available that suggest to us that AOC 1001 is working as expected. In this slide, in this study rather, the monkeys were given a single intravenous infusion of AOC 1001, and we looked to see what happened to the amounts of DMPK RNA in the thigh muscle and the calf muscle over time. So this graph, I want to orient you first to the graph. The horizontal axis shows the time after dosing when the muscle is biopsied. So time 0 is before any drug was given, and then the muscles are biopsied 3 times in 4-week interval. The vertical axis shows the amount of DMPK RNA in the muscle. As you can see on this graph, that 4 weeks after a single IV infusion of AOC 1001, the amount of DMPK RNA measured had decreased by 75% and stayed down out to week 12 after this single dose. So based on this animal data, we're encouraged that the effect of AOC 1001 may last at least 3 months, which would mean that in clinic, it would be given approximately 3 months interval. Let's go to the next slide. Here's one more data slide in monkey study as well. Here we're looking at many different types of muscle tissue in addition to calf and thigh, and including other skeletal muscle, diaphragm, and heart. In all of these different types of muscle, we saw about 75 to 80% reduction of DMPK RNA. So our animal study showed that AOC 1001 was working the way we had intended to work, and these data support moving this program forward into clinical trials. So based on this data, I'd like to tell you about the MARINA study in the next slide. The MARINA is a phase 1/2 trial currently enrolling adults with DM1 at multiple clinical trial sites in the US. Let's go to the next slide. In this slide, I'm going to tell you about the clinical trial design of MARINA. First, the three main goals of the MARINA study are to evaluate the safety and tolerability of AOC 1001, to understand the pharmacokinetics, which means how our body is processing and breaking down AOC 1001. And lastly, to evaluate the ability of AOC 1001 to reduce DMPK RNA in muscle biopsies. This will be a placebo-controlled trial, which means that some participants will receive active drug and others will receive placebo. The active drug and placebo will both be given as an IV infusion. The participants, doctors, and study staff will not know who is receiving the active drug and who is receiving placebo. There are two parts to this study, Part A and Part B. In Part A, participants will have a single IV dose of either AOC 1001 or placebo and will be followed for 6 months. After this 6-month follow-up period, participants can decide to enter an extension trial where everyone will receive the active drug. In Part B, there will be 3 groups of participants, with each group receiving a different dose level. Each participant will receive 3 doses of either AOC 1001 or placebo. After the treatment period and follow-up period, the participants will also have an option to enroll into the extension trial. In the next slide, we have a question. Am I eligible to participate in the MARINA study? So let me tell you in the next slide about the characteristic of MARINA study and what we're looking for. The trial will enroll 44 participants, both male and female, between the age of 18 and 65 years old. Participants must have a confirmed genetic diagnosis of DM1 and be able to walk independently for at least 10 meters during their screening clinical visit. This study is ongoing at multiple sites across the US, as shown here on the map, which we have selected based on their deep experience with caring and managing people with DM1. Further details on eligibility criteria and site list can be found on clinicaltrials.gov. In the next slide, we want to tell you a little bit specifically about how our clinical trial program are designed in partnership with patients and their families. We want to do this so that we can ensure we're meeting the needs and expectations of participants in our trial, as well as minimizing barriers to participation. As part of the direct input we receive from the patient community, we have incorporated some of the following elements to the trial to lessen the burden and to promote a better experience. These include home health care and telemedicine. What this means is that for some study visits, participants will have the option to have a qualified remote nurse come to their house to complete the required study assessment. And there will be a telemedicine visit, which means that we can have interaction with a clinic site through either a phone or internet connection. We also provide travel concierge service. This service will help arrange and prepay for the airfare, lodging, and ground transportation for the study participant and one caregiver. We also will reimburse participants for reasonable travel-related expenses, such as meals and parking. In the next slide, I want to share with you an update on the MARINA trial. During the American Academy of Neurology meeting in April of this year, Dr. Johnston, as the lead MARINA study investigator, presented in an oral presentation and shared an update on the study progress, which is shown here. The first patient study participant received an infusion in the MARINA study in October 2021. Since then, the Part A single-dose cohort is fully enrolled and dosing is complete. There were no serious adverse events observed in Part A, and adverse events were all mild to moderate in severity. The Part B multi-dose cohort is currently enrolling. The MARINA study is on track to be completed in 2023 with an incremental update planned to be shared by the end of this year. Lastly, for my presentation, I'd like to summarize some of the key takeaways from this presentation. At Avidity, we're committed to listening, learning, and partnering with the DM1 community to better understand the needs of the patients and families we're working to serve and bring forth meaningful treatment options. We're excited at the potential of Avidity's AOC technology, which unlocks a new way of delivering drugs directly to affected cells, such as muscle and heart cells, and is well suited to treat an underlying cause of DM1. Our first clinical trial, MARINA, with AOC 1001, is ongoing and currently enrolling patients across the US. Finally, Avidity is partnering with the global DM1 advocacy community, and we will provide you with more information and resources as soon as they're available. I'm going to pass the presentation back to Alissa.
Thank you so much, Lee. In this picture, you can see some of the Avidity team members. They're the faces of the company working to address the unmet needs of individuals, families impacted by myotonic dystrophy. I'm excited to invite up my teammates Husam, Joe, Ben, and Carolyn to join us to share about their specific role in the drug development process and how their teams are helping to advance AOC 1001 for the DM community. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my teammate, Husam.
Thank you, Alissa. My name is Husam Younis. I'm a vice president at Avidity Biosciences within the research organization. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you the work that we do here within the research organization at Avidity. So drug discovery first starts off with a really solid understanding of what causes the diseases that we're interested in, where there's high unmet need. And at the end of the day, we're really looking to target the root causes of these diseases. At Avidity, we really believe that RNA therapeutics are really powerful tools that we could use to go after these diseases, specifically in muscle. So we've worked for many years to better deliver these oligonucleotide RNA therapeutics to muscle tissue. And we've done quite a bit of work to understand in animals as well as in cell lines the potential opportunities here and the benefits of the AOC platform. As Lee mentioned, another important aspect of discovering drugs and in research is to understand the safety profile of this new class of molecules. And we've done extensive work in terms of toxicology testing in animals to evaluate that as well. And at the end of the day, since we're developing a platform technology, we continue to use our learnings from one molecule to the next. Specifically, for AOC 1001, this molecule was discovered by our scientists here at Avidity in our headquarters in San Diego. And we've done quite a bit of work to really understand both the efficacy as well as the safety of these molecules. And based on that comprehensive data package, we successfully submitted an IND package based on our data in-house. The other important aspect is that we're continuing to take the learnings both in our preclinical experiments as well as from the MARINA trial with 1001 to help build better molecules moving forward and to enhance the platform to support our other AOC molecules in the pipeline. With that, I'll hand it off to Joe.
Thanks very much, Husam. My name is Joe Johnston. I'm Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Quality. And what does regulatory affairs do, you might ask? Our role begins at the research stage that Husam was talking about. And we work with collaborative collaborate with the FDA or other regulatory authorities with the goal of developing an expeditious development pathway. Regulatory is the main point of contact to partner and to determine the data generation that's necessary to show that a investigational drug is safe and that it works. Collaborating this way is, in the end, something that we do to try to make that development pathway as rapid as we possibly can, because we know that the DM1 community is waiting. Importantly, regulatory affairs does come together with the DM1 community, with patient advocacy groups for all our diseases, and learns more about the disease so that we can also provide that context to the FDA and regulatory authorities about how the patient feels, what their journey is, and what is important to them in a new therapy. That's important context as the FDA evaluates novel drugs. Further, we stay on top of any updates to recommendations, to guidances, even to laws that the FDA puts out. It's important for us to develop drugs in a way that is compliant with the FDA and other regulatory authorities' expectations, and meeting those expectations, meeting those recommendations, we find smooths the pathway to an expeditious drug approval. And then finally, we lead the team in the preparation and submission of a new drug application. A new drug application is the voluminous pages of documentation that tell the whole story of the drug. The story of how it worked in animals from Husam's group, how it worked in clinical trials from Lee's group, how it's manufactured, processed, and packaged from Carolyn's group. And hopefully our job too is to do this in as expeditious a manner as possible. We have a couple highlights from the last year. As Husam said, we successfully cleared an IND. The team pulled together the information of the non-clinical testing of the clinical protocol, and as a result, the MARINA protocol is ongoing. We also received fast track status from the FDA. Fast track status is a designation that is intended to facilitate the development and expedite the review of drugs, and it's particularly for drugs with unmet medical needs. And then lastly, we also achieved orphan drug status in both the US and the EU. That's a drug reserved for drugs that show promise or have promise in treating or preventing rare diseases. With that, I'll pass it off to Ben Knisely, who's our clinical operations representative.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm Ben Knisely, and I'm the clinical operations lead at Avidity for our clinical trials for patients with DM1. And I'd like to point out, when we talk about clinical operations, it involves literally hundreds of individuals partnering with us within Avidity and externally across other companies that support all we do. And you know, with this, first and foremost, we stress that we really try to start any drug development program, any clinical trial, with the patient in mind from the very beginning. And one of the first kind of key roles is the clinical trial plan, also referred to as the protocol. We collaborate over several months with expert physicians and with patients and the Avidity development team. We host physician and patient focus groups, as well as many one-on-one meetings, and we ensure the study requirements are not overburdensome for patients and the clinical site staff. So we ask, what is realistic without trying to assess too much? To simplify, how often does a patient need to be seen by the doctor? What time points do we need to collect blood, complete patient questionnaires, and which questionnaires? When to perform safety monitoring assessments, and things like what can be done at home. And then next, as part of that, is clinical site engagement, where we identify the expert physicians at centers of excellence, and we closely work with them through contracts and various other agreements that these steps kind of take several months typically. And then there's ethics review groups, or IRBs, that you may be aware of, that each clinical study has a complex package of data and documents that with numerous study plans and that also includes informed consent forms and anything that a patient receives. So this document package is reviewed and scrutinized before the study can begin, and that also takes several months. And during all this time and throughout the trial, as Lee mentioned, we focus on the patient experience. We really think through, what does a day in the life of a patient look like? And as an example, we think about navigating across a hospital campus to complete various tests, and we do our best to make the study reasonable, and we're always seeking feedback to innovate and improve as we go. We build support services and tools to kind of enhance the trial experience for patients, and as much as possible, we build in flexibility as well. With that flexibility, though, we standardize, and it's very important that we train the clinician teams on specifics of the Avidity clinical trial. So they're the DM1 experts, of course, but for study assessments, we consider things like what time of day the assessments need to be performed by the same person, consistency from the left side and the right side, and all kinds of details with the methodology of how things are assessed. And then across sites, and we try to harmonize as much as possible to enhance the quality data generation. So think of going to various specialty doctors over several months or years, and they have databases or systems where your full medical history, labs, procedures, et cetera, don't necessarily talk to one another. And so we work to kind of aggregate all of that data across sites into a centralized database and to a consistent standardized format. And then further to the standardization is kind of the day-to-day study conduct, where we're working with vendors, numerous companies that support our study endpoints for collection of data. And then our clinical sites, we're speaking with them daily, guiding them through questions and how to support them. And each piece of data together kind of tells the story of a patient and what is really happening when the drug is given to patients. And so in ClinOps, we help to kind of piece the puzzles of data together on the clinical trial. So that's a bit of an overview of the role of ClinOps and some specifics for DM1 here at Avidity. And then also, some of the key milestones that we've achieved. We had these patient focus groups that were extremely valuable, very, very insightful to designing our study, and some of the details like Lee mentioned with the travel concierge, reimbursement, home health care, and things like that. And then we've also had the opportunity to have several in-person meetings where we actually go to the trial sites and meet with the clinicians. And we've also had a meeting that's more of like a conference-like setting where we get everyone together with the goal of standardization. And then finally, and this is thanks to the tremendous engagement from the site staff, all 8 of our sites across the US are seeing patients on the MARINA study. And so with that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share with you today, and I hope you found it insightful. So I will pass it to Carolyn.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Ball, and I'm the Vice President of Technical Operations at Avidity, which is just a fancy way of saying manufacturing. So my job is to make sure that after patients and study participants go through all of the work that Ben just described in enrolling in a clinical study, that the drug is actually there, ready to treat them. So this is highly complex and highly specialized manufacturing. If you think back to the slide that Lee was discussing with our antibody and then our RNA or siRNA, and then conjugated together and then into vials. So that's actually done at 4 separate facilities that we manage in very different ways, because the technology required to do manufacturing of this type of molecule is pretty complex. So we manage all of these building blocks, we put it together, we make sure the product gets into the vials, and then we make sure that the vials are labeled and sent to the sites on time for treatment for patients. So we are doing manufacturing now for clinical trials, and we anticipate, hopefully, that we will be manufacturing for commercial use down the line as we go through the regulatory process that Joe described. Another important point to note is that at each step that I described, we actually have to pause and do very rigorous quality testing, because this is very important product that's going into human beings. And so the FDA and every regulatory agency across the world has very strict standards. And in some cases, the testing of the drug actually takes longer than the manufacturing of the drug. So we really pause several months between each step to make sure that it's okay to proceed to the step afterward. On top of that, this is not all done in the United States, and so we're actually moving pieces of our drug across borders. And so there are shipping and supply logistics involved. It's quite interesting, all of the paperwork you have to fill out to clear experimental drugs to go across borders. There are a lot of agencies that must check to make sure that you are moving the appropriate material, that it's labeled appropriately, and that your temperature controls are adequate to make sure that the drug, once it's manufactured, is still safe for you. Some of the milestones that we've hit on just in the last kind of couple of years. So this is the first ever AOC for clinical use. So we're having a lot of these discussions with our manufacturing facilities because some of these facilities are doing this for the first time. It's not like there are other AOCs on the market. And so we are working with them to make sure that everything is going to work smoothly today and in the future when we anticipate that we will be treating more patients and we will probably have to move into larger scale equipment. We did a little bit of an internal celebration in December of 2020 when our first batch of AOC 1001 was filled into vials. It was right around Christmas time, and we were sending pictures of the vials around internally because it was essentially the culmination of years of work to get there. This was the drug that was dosed into the first patients the following October. And that timeline, if you say, wow, that was done pretty far in advance, that's a good indication of how far in advance manufacturing has to plan. The drug for MARINA is actually all manufactured, and we're spending a lot of time today planning on future trials so that we make sure that we're going to have all the possible drug we need as we move through clinical development. And so for the most part, manufacturing is looking 2 and 3 years down the line about where we anticipate our program is going to be to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of product ready to go. And then at the end, again, we're doing a lot of pre-work in anticipation of an eventual commercial launch. We have a long way to go to get there, but it is something we're really excited about at Avidity. With that, I will turn it back over to Alissa.
Great, thank you so much, Carolyn. We're just a few members of the whole team here at Avidity that are committed to improving the lives of individuals and families impacted by rare muscle diseases, including myotonic dystrophy type 1. We're an extremely passionate group and love the work we do, as you can tell from my teammates sharing about their functions and the work they're doing for AOC 1001. And it is truly our privilege to serve this patient, caregiver, and advocacy community. We are always here to answer your questions. You can connect with us at patients@aviditybio.com. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And now we have some remaining time to address more of your questions that were submitted earlier or that you are submitting today. And so I'd like to invite Lee. Thank you for joining us so we can all answer your questions as a whole team. Great. And one of the first questions that was actually submitted prior to this call, I'll direct this to Lee. If I'm currently in the MARINA phase 1/2 study, can I continue drug after the study?
Yes, thank you, Alissa. So participants who are enrolled in the MARINA study can continue into the open label extension study where all participants will receive AOC 1001 on a quarterly interval. So we're actually in the middle of setting that trial up for that to happen.
Great. This next question we will direct to Ben. Do you have any plans to expand your trials to sites outside of the US? Ben, I think you may be on mute.
Thank you. Yes, for good measure there. Yeah, so MARINA is open at 8 clinical trial sites right now across the US. And we will not be expanding beyond our current sites at the MARINA trial, but future studies we do plan to likely be global. So really, we're hoping that the results from MARINA will support the advancing of AOC 1001 into future studies, like a phase 3 trial, that we would, intend to run as a global study, as most phase 3 studies are. So those are usually larger trials, and enrolling quite a few more patients as well. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Ben. This next question I'll direct to Husam. Will AOC 1001 help with the CNS or the cognitive symptoms of myotonic dystrophy type 1?
Yeah, as Lee mentioned, the technology that we have is really targeting the muscle and the heart. So we expect that the major impact is going to be on those organ systems. We don't have substantial penetration into the brain, so the impact on the cognitive functions may be limited.
The next question is for Lee, and this question has been asked in a number of different ways. Do you plan to relax or broaden the eligibility criteria for participants in your next study?
Thanks, Alissa. As you know, the trial eligibility is often different between trials with more restrictive eligibility criteria in the case of earlier trials versus broader and more relaxed criteria for later phase trial. So in early clinical trial, which MARINA is one of them, eligibility criteria are usually more narrowly defined and specific to a small population. Enrolling a homogeneous population helps to limit the variability that we will see from other factors outside the trial. And this is very important to allow us to better characterize the profile of AOC 1001. So this is kind of how we started, and it's important also to remember that not being eligible for one research study does not determine your ability to take part in future trials, since every trial will have different eligibility criteria, and those were formed really based on the goal of those trials. So we're hoping that the result from the MARINA trial will support advancing AOC 1001 into a larger phase 3 clinical trial. And as I said, phase 3 is usually larger and enrolling significantly more participants. And as Ben said, that will likely be going to many more countries than just US. So in that trial, we're hoping to broaden the criteria. And this might present a new opportunity to participate in clinical research with AOC 1001. And also, this will help us to bring us one step closer to the potential of delivering a new therapeutic option for patients living with DM1.
Thank you, Lee. The next question that was submitted, I will direct to Carolyn. What effect does signing up for a clinical trial have on the speed of making a drug widely available?
Sure, thanks. So it is always good to consider signing up for clinical trials. We really do work in partnership with patient communities to ensure that we can conduct safe and efficacious trials. And the faster we enroll, and this is a little bit more in Ben's area of expertise, but the faster we enroll, the faster we can treat patients and move on to the next phase of drug development. So Avidity is committed to moving AOC 1001 through the clinic as safely and quickly as possible. We really do understand that patients are waiting for treatment. And in manufacturing, we're making a lot of investment, quote, at risk, not knowing if we're ever going to commercialize, but planning on it because we really do have a lot of faith in our technology, and we're hoping that we will be able to move this product through the regulatory and clinical process as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Carolyn. This next question is for Joe. When do you anticipate having an accessible treatment in the pipeline available to all with a diagnosis of myotonic dystrophy?
At Avidity, we think about time a lot in everything we do. That is, we understand the urgency that the DM1 community has, and we share that urgency, and we want to get therapies available ASAP. At the same time, we need to generate the data that tells the patient, that tells the caregiver, and that tells the regulators how the drug acts, whether the drug is safe, and whether the drug works. We need to generate the data that provides that information. So to balance those two things, the need for expeditious development along with a evidence generation that will inform the patient and their caregivers, our goal, as Carolyn said, is to enroll, to design first, and then to enroll and execute on studies as quickly as possible. And hopefully then generate that data as quickly as possible, get it into the regulators, and get approval as expeditiously as possible. In the interim, during the testing phase of drugs, really the best way to gain access is through the clinical trials. You then can be part of that rapid enrollment, the rapid execution, and the rapid data generation to hopefully get a drug more widely available to the broad patient population as expeditiously as possible.
Thank you, Joe. This next question is for Husam. Will you be researching a potential treatment for myotonic dystrophy type 2 or DM2?
Yeah, the opportunity that we have with the platform can actually address a broad class of muscle diseases. And certainly, you know, DM2, we know there's a high unmet medical need there, and that may be an opportunity in the future.
Great, thank you. There is a question that was just submitted from the audience today, and actually it's for Joe. I know you talked about fast track designation earlier. Can you describe how you worked with the FDA and what they saw that prompted fast track designation for AOC 1001?
Yeah, right now, the fast track was something that was submitted shortly after our IND was cleared. And it was based upon data that was generated in Husam's group. Again, fast track is intended to facilitate development and to expedite review, and it's reserved for compounds that do show some promise, either non-clinically or clinically, in being able to address the disease. And this was based on non-clinical data that came out of Husam's shop.
Great, thanks, Joe. And there's one more question in the chat. How do you get to give Avidity feedback as a participant of a clinical trial? And so, you know, importantly, I'll take this one. Importantly, for those who are enrolled in the MARINA trial or future trials with Avidity, as these are double-blinded studies, it's important that you are within the trial and you're not giving feedback to the sponsor during the course of the clinical trial. And so once that trial is completed, there will be opportunities to participate, to share feedback, as Ben talked about, in the clinical operations with support services, education, and how we conduct engagement with the patient community. And one other question that was submitted prior to the call was, what can patients and families do now to help research move faster? You know, a really important question, and I talked a little bit about some of those opportunities to get involved. So just reiterating some of that, continuing to raise disease awareness, enrolling in natural history studies, or signing up for registries to stay up to date, collaborating with patient advocacy organizations like the MDF. They're available. They have many great resources for you, as Tanya shared at the beginning of this call. Staying informed about the latest updates in research and clinical trial opportunities. And then finally, I know many of you know this, being able to advocate for yourself and your family and the broader DM community is so important to help advancing care. And that actually brings us to the top of our hour. And I think we can go ahead and conclude the call. Thank you all again for your time and attention today.
Thank you so much. This was a fantastic presentation. It's wonderful to hear from so many different team members who help make the development of the drug and clinical trials possible. I think this is the first time we've heard about the complete process. So we really appreciate the knowledge that you shared with us today. I want to make sure folks know that Avidity will be at the conference in September, the MDF conference in September in San Diego. So if you have additional questions for them, you will be able to ask them live and in person, which will be very exciting. I want to just thank Alissa, Lee, Joe, Carolyn, Ben, Husam. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your dedication to developing a treatment for myotonic dystrophy. And we look forward to hearing more about your progress in September. Have a wonderful and fantastic holiday weekend, everybody.